What's going on, guys? Dan Watson, Learning Cameras, and I've got the Nikon D850, a camera that really needs no introduction because this thing is unbelievable. I mean, you're talking a 45 megapixel backside illuminated sensor, 9 frames per second shooting with this battery grip right here. It's built like a tank too, this camera. And also you have the same autofocus system from the D5. So I had to get this camera in, had to put it through its paces. Had it for about 2 months now shooting with it, also compared to the 5D Mark IV and A7R III. So you can check out a link for that. If you don't see it yet, that means you need to subscribe because it's coming soon. So definitely subscribe, hit up the links below. You'll see the kit that I was shooting this with, as well as some of my recommended gear and the raw files from this. I'm gonna post a bunch of those so you can download those yourself. Check them out, see the quality, low light quality, dynamic range, and play with this camera before you actually get it in stock. But we're gonna take a look at this camera. I'm excited to show you these images, so stay tuned. Here they come right now. So first let's talk hardware, because there's a lot to talk about here. I mean, in an age where smaller mirrorless cameras are really picking up steam, the Nikon kind of goes the opposite direction. It gains weight. We're talking about 2 pounds right here, just over, which makes it a quarter pound heavier than the Canon 5D Mark IV and a half a pound heavier than the A7R III. So this is really a tank. The good news for that is it feels like it. I mean, if I were to pick one of those cameras to throw off a bridge and expect it to survive, this would be the one that I would try first. It feels heavy duty. Everything is really in its place. The ergonomics of this camera are amazing, with one exception, I would say. And overall, it's just an unbelievable heavy built camera to use if you were to take a camera and need it for a wildlife wilderness shoot, or really to endure just about anything you might expect. This is going to be the camera to get. Now, now we have a flip out touchscreen, which is really cool, and it should be a way more useful than it really was. And we'll talk about a little bit more about the live view operation of this. But you do have that available. Also on the card slots, we do have the XQD card and UHS-2, which is kind of an interesting pairing. I don't know why they didn't just go with dual UHS-2 for this one. The downside is that only Sony is really making XQD cards right now, and the good news is that it's actually cheaper now than a UHS-2 card. Walking around the body, I will say that the only thing that kind of annoys me about this camera is the location of its AF module. I mean, with smaller lenses like this, it's not too bad. My hand is pretty close to the body, but with the battery grip and large lenses, it's really difficult to get to this. It's just not in a good place. I can't see a reason why I would want it here. It's been there for a while, so if you're a Nikon shooter, you kind of got used to it, but it's the only thing about this camera that I would really like to see changed. It wasn't that long ago either that the Nikon D800 really set the standard for quality with a 36 megapixel sensor, and now the D850 one-ups that with a 45 megapixel backside illuminated sensor. And when I say the quality is amazing, we're talking about competing with medium format cameras amazing. I mean, it easily puts to shame just about every other camera on the market, and it is really the pinnacle right now for full frame DSLR quality. Now, with that 45 megapixels, normally we would expect low light results to not be that great, but thanks to that backside illuminated sensor, I would say that we're right up there with what Canon and Sony are doing. It's certainly no worse. It's a little disappointing that we're not seeing a big jump in low light quality, but it is easily just as good, if not a little bit better than most of those cameras, and better than the D810, and that's great to see. And the other thing it normally hits is pretty hard with that high resolution sensor is frame rate, and this is something that's absolutely unbelievable. We have 7 frames per second in there. This is matching Canon's 5D Mark IV, and then with this battery grip, we can now up it to 9 frames per second, which even beats the new A7R III I'm using this with, and that only gets 8 frames per second. So being able to shoot, I mean, if you're a sports and wildlife photographer on this, you'd be stupid not to consider this camera. 45 megapixels, high resolution, being able to shoot at 9 frames per second with Nikon's excellent lens lineup is absolutely stunning. I think this is a game changer for so many industries right here. So, I mean, it really is unbeatable being able to get that. We have the same autofocus system too from the Nikon D5. That's 153 points, 99 cross-type points. It is one of the best autofocus systems that I've seen. You have 3D tracking, face detection, all of the high-end features that you would expect in this, and it really blew away both of the other cameras in all of my tests. So yeah, complete quality, and the speed and the autofocus system really puts this into a completely different level of camera, and really puts to shame even Nikon D5s and Nikon DXs in so many areas. This is a camera that almost everyone is going to get excited about. Connectivity wise, we have Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, no NFC, which I guess is the only slight disappointment on that. We do have that in the A7R III, but other than that, the features on here are amazing. We also have silent shooting. We can shoot in live view up to 6 frames per second, just not with continuous AF. And with that silent shooting, one thing that's really great is that 4K time lapse. And I will say that although the 4K time lapse is unbelievable, and this is one of the best time lapse cameras you can buy right now, it was the only area I was a little disappointed at, and it really is Nikon's fault because they introduced a press release with 8K time-lapse camera, and all that meant is that we have, I believe, like 33 megapixels and more, which is all you need for an 8K time-lapse. And there's so many cameras on the market that can deliver this 8K time-lapse. You can't formulate 8K time-lapses in camera. You have to take it out in the software and do it. On the video side, it's great to see Nikon pushing so much on this because, you know, they don't have a series of video cameras like Sony and Canon to grab, and still we're seeing them push technology to a different level on this one. We have a full frame sensor capable of doing 4K at 30 frames per second, 1080p at 120 frames per second, using the entire sensor, which is good. You're not using oversampling or anything, so the detail isn't quite there compared to some other options, but it's still amazing to see. We do have this flip touchscreen. We have a mic and headphone out. You can output HDMI. It is clean. It is only 8-bit, so that's the only negative on that one. But overall, we also have like you don't have log profiles, but you do have flat profiles that are going to be able to be used for that. And yeah, I mean, for what the technology that Nikon has available, it's great to see them doing this. When you have other cameras like Canon's 5D Mark IV that's a 1.7x crop to shoot in 4K and it's motion JPEG, it's just sad to see cameras like that have so much technology at their disposal and yet not use it. The Nikon D850 is using all the technology that Nikon has available. It's still not going to quite compete with the A7R III for video, but it is amazing in and of itself what it can do, and most people will be pretty happy with it. But that brings me back to the one big negative with the D850, and that's going to be the live view performance. I mean, you have this touchscreen with this flip out screen, which is amazing, and all this video features and silent shooting and 6 frames per second, and then we just don't have autofocus that's really useful. I mean, point to point is okay. It's kind of useless in most scenarios. I think it just struggled a lot of times, especially with longer lenses, and then continuous autofocus is basically unusable on that one. And in an age where we have the Sony A7R III that has live view and also the EVF, which is contributing to getting some of those cool features, and it has amazing autofocus. It's basically the same autofocus system that you're getting when looking through the viewfinder is now in live view as well. And the Canon 5D Mark IV, which has a dual pixel live view as well. And compare that to this, I kept coming back to it. There are situations that I like to shoot kind of higher up and low to the ground, and live view is great for that. Movie shooting, it's great to be able to self-shoot like this using the autofocus system, and I feel like I can count on that for most other cameras, but this one you just can't. And so for me, I just kept on coming back to it because it's something that I use all the time. It's something that I appreciate, and it was a shame not to have a good live view system, and I think that's the one thing that Nikon really needs to work on, and I would love to see this fixed sooner than later. Overall, the Nikon D850 is just such an unbelievable camera. It really is the best DSLR on the market right now, with that image quality, with the speed, the autofocus system, so much features, and the build quality is amazing. There's just so much packed into this camera. It's hard to go wrong. I mean, for me, it came down to just a couple things. If you're a wildlife photographer and sports photographer and want something high resolution, this is a must-have. It's simply unbeatable. Also for landscape shooters, it's hard not to deny that quality that's coming out of this camera, the build quality, as well as your time-lapse options built into the camera. This is so much to appreciate for that one. For me, it came down to live view, video, and also the size of the camera. So if you're looking for something that's, you don't mind that larger size, something that's a little weightier but built like a tank, this is going to be it. And then the other thing for me is live view. If you love live view, you need to look at some other cameras like the A7R III and maybe even the 5D IV. And then for video, that's another thing that while this does have 4K and some unbelievable options, not having that autofocus system is going to be key for photographers who might not be behind the camera so much or skilled in manual focus. Also, we don't have focus peaking if you're in 4K, so those kind of assist options are not there as well. You also have digital image stabilization that's only in 1080p, so you know, a lot of those options are only available and not available in 4K. And so yeah, those are the three things. If those are not negatives to you, then by all means, this is an unbelievable camera. It's a heavy step up from the D810, and I really think it's worth the upgrade, and a camera that's going to be top of the line for a while longer. And that's basically it. If you want to see the more detailed comparison between this and the A7R III and the 5D Mark IV, definitely check out those links. I appreciate you guys supporting me by hitting subscribe, hit that like button right there, and then also down below, check out those links for all of this stuff. I've got a bunch of other videos. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned. I'll see you real soon.